Hey, welcome to Builder Funnel Radio. Today, I'm super excited to announce a new segment of the show called the Growth Series. Now, if you've been listening to Builder Funnel Radio for a while, you know that we bring you industry guests, thought leaders, experts, people that are in the trenches. And we do that every other week. We sit down, have a conversation, and we extract all this great information that they have, and we pass it on to you so that you can improve your business. Now, we're still going to do that, but on off weeks, we're going to do the Growth Series episodes. Now, these will be a little bit shorter, but a little bit more tactical. So the idea is that we want to dive right into a topic and give you actionable things that can help you grow either as a person or help your company grow. So you're going to see us dive into very specific marketing topics, sales topics, but it could be team culture related as well. And again, the idea behind the Growth Series is that we want to help individuals grow and thereby companies grow. So I really hope that you're going to enjoy this new segment of the show. Again, you can look for it on these off weeks in between our guest features. And so sit back and relax and enjoy the Growth Series by Builder Funnel Radio. Hey, welcome back to the Growth Series here on Builder Funnel Radio. This is episode 54, and today I'm super excited for the conversation and the topic because lately I've been doing a lot of reflecting on our journey here at Builder Funnel. It started almost 10 years ago. We're coming up on that early in 2020. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually come from a family of entrepreneurs on both sides of my family. And that's really how Builder Funnel was born. And it kind of goes back on one side of my family. It's a long line of home builders, and it was my great grandfather, potentially great grandfather, that started the business and continued to go down the line. And I think today they've been in business over 100 years, 107, 108, something like that. But my dad worked in that business for over 15 years, and then he kind of made a pivot and he moved us from the Seattle area out to Colorado Springs, where my other grandfather had a direct mail business, and he moved us out and bought that business and built that business up over a number of years, had a couple of warehouses, processing more than 1 million pieces of mail every month. Direct mail was a very, very large industry. And then in the late 2000s, the economy started to crash. And it was interesting because it hit both businesses pretty dramatically. So the home building business, obviously you guys know what happened there, and that was cratering. And then the same thing was happening with direct mail, because a lot of things were shifting to digital and digital marketing, and those mediums were just more accessible to people that have been leveraging direct mail. And so we saw kind of this decline of both of those industries happening at the same time. And it was right at that time that I was fortunate enough to be getting out of school and looking for a job and what I was kind of going to do with my career. And I started researching how social media was being used for business and just diving into that. And so I decided, hey, I think I can help some companies leverage, a Facebook business page, a Twitter account, a blog. These were kind of those first tools. There was no Instagram and some of these newer platforms back at that time. And so I started helping a few companies with their social media profiles, and was talking to my dad he was running the direct mail operation. He was looking to make another pivot, and he saw that direct mail really wasn't going to come back because there were a lot of people that were just mailing what we would call touch mail. So like bills, statements, things that were just all converting over to email. And so a lot of that business was just going to go away. And he said, hey, we need to transform our company into more of a full service agency, and we need to figure out this digital component. And so he said, hey, I know you're helping some people with social media. Why don't you just come over here? We'll figure it out together. And so that was really where Builder Funnel was originally born. It was a division of a direct mail company and we started to do a lot of testing and experimenting. And as you guys know, the digital landscape is changing very quickly. They say Google maybe changes their algorithm a couple of times a day in little ways, or at least once a day. And then there's typically one or maybe two major updates throughout a course of a year. And so you just had to be always learning and consuming and testing. And so, that's what I was doing with social media. That's what I was doing with blogging. And that's really what started to transform the company and where we were going, is developing this habit of continuous learning. So as we started to develop this habit of continual learning, I was just devouring, blogs and books, and podcasts were starting to come around at that time, and listening to audiobooks, and just trying to educate myself on how this stuff was changing. And then it started to spread to other topics, like leadership and investing and, marketing and sales and those types of topics. And so as I was consuming this information, I started to weave it into the culture and the fabric of our company. And so there are a few things that we do, that we did back then and we still do today. One of those is our weekly jam session, and can't quite remember how we came up with that, but I know it had something to do with kind of like jamming out over marketing. And so basically every Monday over lunch, we'd go out to lunch. Everyone would bring articles on what was changing, with Google or social media or digital marketing. And we would talk about different tools, technology, strategies, best practices, and share those among the team so that we could all elevate ourselves and be implementing these things for our clients. And so that's where Jam Session was born, and it continued and it's evolved, and we cover a variety of different topics, but the whole premise of it is that we need to educate ourselves and we need to continue to push the bar. We also started basically a book club, but we call it Client Service. And it's we do that meeting monthly. And that's where we read a book as a team. And it's called Client Service because that was the very first book we read. And it was called The Art of Client Service. And it talked about how you should engage with a client, how do you form a relationship, kind of balancing that friendship versus business relationship. But also managing expectations and a lot of good stuff like that. So that kind of kicked off that segment, so to speak. But today, we now pick books, we vote on them as a team, we buy them, everybody's got them, and then we read chunks of those and we discuss them. And again, the whole purpose behind this meeting is continuous learning. And maybe you're sitting there thinking, well, how can we afford to invest, that much time? We've got maybe 10 people in this meeting, we're spending an hour discussing it, everybody's reading it. But my take on it is, if we're not continually learning and progressing, then we're going to stall out somewhere. We're going to get caught, and we're not going to continue to advance the way we want to. So we've been able to weave that into kind of the fabric and the culture of our company. And it's really cool because you start to uncover a lot more about each of your team members, and you get to hear their points of view on what they were reading, and everybody kind of pulls something different from these books. So I feel like you get a lot more out of the book as well. Something else that we do is we take the entire team to Boston once a year. There's an annual inbound conference, and it's dedicated to inbound marketing and sales strategies. And that event has grown from just a few hundred people to, I think last year there were maybe 25,000 people at the event. And so we all go, we spread out, we attend lots of different sessions. And again, the idea is that we need to be continually learning and adapting and changing to new technology and new trends. So there's a couple other things that we do too to really make sure that we're continually pushing the envelope here in terms of learning. We also have an optional book club, and so that's kind of above and beyond Client Service where everybody's reading the same book. But this is, again, once a month, but anybody can come, it's not required, and you can share whatever you're reading personally. And so that's been a great way to, again, exchange ideas, but also learn about different books and different viewpoints that other people have. Something else that we do is we keep up on certifications. So there are a lot of software certifications, best practice certifications in our industry around whether that's SEO or blogging or social media or content. But that's a good way to force ourselves again to make sure that we're learning the latest and greatest, but we're actually taking the time and setting that aside and saying, okay, I'm going to study this, I'm going to improve. And so we don't just kind of flatline on what we're doing. So one of the coolest things about doing all of this is that I feel like we've been able to foster a lot of new ideas and recognize that good ideas come from anywhere. And so sure, as the leader, I need to set the vision and we're going down a path, but not all the good ideas are going to come from me, and they can't. If that were the case, then we're going to get stalled out pretty quickly. I have some good ideas, but I also have some really bad ones. So we need to rely on everybody. And I find that the more we learn and the more new ideas you expose yourself to, then creativity gets sparked from that, and especially from the discussions too. So we've had lots of great ideas that have come from different team members, all different positions, and those get implemented. And it's super rewarding for those team members to see those ideas get implemented. But it's really nice too, as the leader, to recognize, hey, I don't need to come up with all the good ideas. I can't possibly, and it's awesome if somebody else has a good idea. They're going to take it and run with it, and then it improves the company. And so that's been something that I didn't necessarily anticipate coming out of all this, but it's been a huge benefit to us. And then the other thing that I'm just very interested personally in personal finance and budgeting. And so I've held several classes, and again, these are optional, but anybody can come. And I just teach my process of budgeting and saving and investing. And that's been another way that we kind of bake in this just continuous improvement into our company. And so those are just a few like very tactical things that I wanted to share with you guys. These kind of have evolved over the years, but they've really had a massive impact on our growth as a company, what we've been able to accomplish, and also, you know, looking down the road, I think where we end up, if we continue to do these things, it's going to start to compound and magnify even more. So why am I sharing all these little details about our company? And really, as I was reflecting back on our journey, I started to think about even my journey back into high school and coming through college before I started the company and got going down this path with Builder Funnel. And I am a natural introvert. In high school, I was super shy. I basically put my head down, studied, did my work. I didn't want to talk to anybody. Didn't want to raise my hand in class. I was super, super embarrassed if I had to stand up and give a presentation. It was just uncomfortable beyond belief. And as I've been reflecting back, I've been able to overcome a lot of those things. I'm still naturally introverted. I prefer one-on-one conversations, small group settings, but I've been able to speak at big conferences in front of big crowds. Obviously, this podcast is going out to a lot of different people. And I started thinking about, you know, how I was able to do that. And I don't know that I realized it in those early years, but what I found is that the more I learn, the more confidence I build. And then also the more action I take, the more confidence I build. So the learning and the knowledge gave me some confidence to take a couple of steps, even if they were baby steps. And then once I took those steps, I went, oh, okay, like that was uncomfortable, but I could do that again. And then I could do that again. And then I started to build reps. And so even just like running a team meeting with confidence and effectiveness, that was nerve-wracking. If I had to give a presentation, I'd have a pit in my stomach for 2 weeks. I'd just feel sick. And then I'd get through the presentation and it would just instantly go away. But I've been able to overcome that. Now, sure, I still get nervous, but I've done it before. I've been building reps. And so I've been able to move through that. Selling was super uncomfortable. I didn't think of myself as a salesperson, but I realized as a business owner, you've got to be able to sell. And so that was something that, again, I just made a lot of cold calls, you know, had a lot of appointments, set a lot of meetings. And then I was forced to run those meetings and figure out what I was doing, have these conversations, and just kind of get over myself. And so I'm only saying this because now, fast forwarding, I've been able to, again, speak in front of really large groups. I've sold millions of dollars, and I've helped our clients sell tens of millions of dollars worth of homes and remodels over the last several years. And I'm only saying that because if you would have asked myself in high school if I would be doing these types of things now, I would have thought you were crazy. And so the amount of personal transformation I've gone through on this journey, I'm really proud of, but I'm also excited for the future because I know what I know, I guess, and I know that that journey is possible. And so I know for the next, 10 years, it can be even more magnified. And the reason I wanted to share this with you guys today is because I think we all have doubts or fears or concerns in different areas of our lives, whether that's speaking or dealing with a client situation that's tough or, an uncomfortable situation. And by learning and taking action, you can overcome those things. And so if you have something that makes you really uncomfortable, I know sales is one of those. Maybe, we got into business for our craft. For me, it was marketing. For you, it was building a home, remodeling a home. And then we realize as we start to get really good at that, we start pulling in more work because people get to know about us. But then we realize, oh, now I'm not actually doing what I got into the business to do, which was the marketing or the building of the home or the remodeling of the home. And now you have to sell, you have to market, you have to run operations. And so in terms of sales, that can be really uncomfortable. But the more you learn, then the more you have confidence in that, and then you can push through it. So I just like to share it because I think it just unveils that opportunity for growth. And you go, okay, yeah, this is super uncomfortable, but you can work through it. And so more of just words of encouragement, kind of being a little bit vulnerable, sharing some of my story in hopes that it impacts you. And you can look at one of those areas in your life where you're saying, hey, this is not my favorite, or this is really uncomfortable, or I don't like this. But knowing that there's some steps that you can take to get through it. All right, so I've got a few takeaways from today. The first thing is to take a look at your life, take a look at your business, and find one of those areas that you kind of shy away from and start looking up more information about it. Grab a book, do a Google search, listen to a podcast, but build that knowledge base around it. And then once you've learned a little bit more, you'll be more confident taking some more action steps in that area. And then you start taking that action and building some confidence. So I think those are some quick, easy steps that you can take that'll put you on that path to growth in an area that maybe is not your favorite or is a little bit uncomfortable or it scares you or any of those types of things. And this is something that I'm continually working on because I know there's lots of areas that I need to improve in. And so one of those things that I'm working on right now is actually pretty unrelated to business, but it's I'm trying to stretch every day and drink 100 ounces of water every day. And I know when I do those things, I generally feel better. It does spill over into productivity at work because I have more energy and I'm, taking care of my body. And so those things are important to me. But once those become a habit, then I'll move on to some other things. And that's actually something that we'll talk about in another episode of the Growth Series is the topic of habits and habit momentum. But for today, I think those are some good ones. And I just encourage you, don't worry if these things are uncomfortable or scare you, or you tend to shy away from them. You can move through that by learning and then taking action. So get out there and work on those things this week, and we will see you next week on Builder Funnel Radio.